Social and political commentary. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? That's always and forever. That's right. Salt to the streets. Hey, another fantastic episode. Everyday Normal Person's Podcast. Salt to the streets. Upper left or the upper left?
Starting a live video. We're here. Okay, so my name is Donavan. Obviously, Salt to the Streets. Thank you everyone for joining, who's tapping in. Yesterday, in our courts in Olympia, Initiative 1639 was upheld, and I talked about this a little bit earlier, and it's likely to be challenged. But Colin and I talked about it in the past when it was first coming up. I know the lighting's a little bit weird, but I'm here, everybody. But so we talked about this. It was in 2018, I believe, when this first came on the ballot, and we talked about it in depth on the show. And I will go back and find out what episode that was, and we're going to post this video on YouTube, and so I'll link that in the bottom of the YouTube video, so that everybody can go and listen to that if they want, because our opinions have changed a lot since then, and that's what I'm here to talk about today. Everything. So let me start here, right? Everything that I know about firearms, I have learned in the last 18 months. 2 years at the most, right? So we'll call it 2 years. And so I say that because I feel that it's important for everyone to understand that if somebody with just 2 years of firearm knowledge is able to find inconsistencies in a piece of legislation like this, then I think that it points out that there are some serious flaws. And that's not to say that I'm not politically activated, that I'm not tapped into stuff like that, but I still, as far as firearms go, I feel like if you're going to be making legislation, it should be... Anyway, so I have one concern about this video that I want to raise at the front, because I want everyone to know that it's not my intent. I am concerned that this video will be taken by some people who are very pro-Second Amendment to will be taken as me creating a framework for our government to make a better firearms bill, and that is not my intent. My intent is just to highlight the inconsistencies in this bill and to show you guys and anybody that you share this with that this bill is not the answer, and that we were kind of fooled, and me included, right? Because if you listen to that episode that I was talking about, Colin and we voted for this. We told people to vote for it. We were like, this is a great idea. I didn't own any firearms then. I own a few firearms now. One AR-15. We'll get into that a little bit later. But and those things have given me better insight into the way that this legislation works. And I feel that it's important for people who may not have that experience to understand how this really works, right? So 1639 was an initiative that was passed on the ballot, so we passed it as a state, right? That covered a few things, right? It covers safe storage of firearms, it covers background checks, an increase in age limits to purchase semi-automatic rifles, and there's a couple other things, but we'll go through these things, right? I'm not going to break down the bill comprehensively. We did that already. I'm going to talk about, like I said, the inconsistencies that I've found since then, right? And so I want to start by saying I used to hate firearms. We've talked about that a lot, and so I just say that just to show that we've come a long way. And I don't really like to show off the firearms that I have. That's not really something I do. I know we posted some of those videos last week when we were shooting. That's kind of a different thing. But I'm going to do a little bit of that tonight just so that people can understand. Not because I'm trying to show off or anything, because none of them are that cool. But just so that people can have a visualization and understand, right? And so let's start with... Let's start with the good parts, right? Because there are some elements of this bill that I think are good, right, to a certain extent. And I say that through... Get out of here, Mark. I'm sorry, the cat is over here. Okay, so there's some pieces of this that I still like, right? And part of that is in regards to safe storage, right? And I don't love that it is something that is being done through the law. I don't think that it necessarily should be mandated like that, but I do think that it's a must, because safe storage of firearms is a problem that we have in this country, and it's a problem that we've even had in this town, right? When I was in high school, there was a shooting at Arbonjar Elementary School, which is a small school in Bremerton, where, if I'm remembering correctly, a child got their parents' firearm and brought it to school and accidentally shot one of the other students, right? So, and it was young kid, like I think they were like 8 or 9 years old. And so, like, you can fact check that. I'm not trying to mislead anybody, but I know that it was an elementary school, so they were, at the most 12 years old, but I know that it was a young kid. And so it's a must, and I don't like the idea of telling any grown adult what they should do, because I don't want to be told to do what to do as a grown adult. But I do feel very strongly that people, especially people with children or who have children in their homes, need to be safely securing their firearms, and anybody, to ensure that nobody gets access to them who shouldn't have access to them, who isn't educated on them, who doesn't understand what they are, how they're used, or what can be happen if they're not used correctly, right? So again, I don't love any law that tells people what they have to do. That's just not really consistent with my beliefs, but this video is kind of in line with modern political views, not like the way that I really feel. That's kind of a separate issue. And so, one thing that I think should be noted when it talks about safe storage is one of the big things that was talked about when this bill first happened is, like, if your gun is stolen and it's used in a crime, you're going to go to jail. We talked about that a lot in the first episode, so I'm not going to cover it extensively here, but that's not true, right? So that's one of the reasons I can get on board with the safe storage thing, is because it's really just like lock up your fucking firearms, right? I also have heard and do understand, and to a certain extent agree, there are a lot of people that are concerned that people who are complying fully with the safe firearm storage guidelines could put themselves at risk if somebody tries to break into their home or something like that and their gun is locked up. If it has a trigger lock, because in the legislation, right, it says, and I just read it before here, so it says like a trigger lock, a gun lock, or anything that would render the firearm unusable or unable to fire from anybody, right? So as part of that, every gun that you buy comes with a gun lock, right? And so this goes in the barrel of your gun. It depends on what you have, right? But either way, it goes through it and to make sure that you can't fire, right? You can also have a gun safe. There are pistol safes. There's all kinds of different ways just to securely and safely store your firearms. This comes with every gun that you purchase in Washington. I believe every gun, but certainly every new gun comes with one of these, right? There are other ways that you can secure your firearms that are safe and within guidelines and also accessible, right? And that's one of the things that I ran into, one of the concerns that I ran into when I bought my first firearm. So this, and then this is not an ad or anything, this is the only one that I have. This is called a stop box, and I got this. It's just a mechanical safe that, you can put your firearm into. And so I'll show you here. This is my firearm. It's unloaded, as you can see, for safety, right? There's nothing in here. So you can put this in here and close it up. And you can just set this, you can just set this anywhere. And it's drop safe, and you can have it above your bed and stuff like that. And it opens just with little switches. And so it opens like that. It's nice and easy. I, again, don't blame anyone for not wanting the state or our state or the federal government to tell them the way that they have to take care of their own items that they paid money for. I understand. I agree. I also have a child, and so I have another element that for me overrules that personally a little bit, not for other people, but for me personally, that I don't like the state telling me what to do. But even if they weren't, I probably would have something like this, because I have a kid, I have a nephew, I have a niece, I have little kids that that come to my house, you know? And so this is a way that it can be out like on a table and accessible in case something happens, but nobody can get into it because you have to press the right combination of the buttons to be able to get it open. And so the only people who know that are the only people who can get into it. The only people who know that are me and my wife, right? So that's, I think, the good element of this that I wanted to mention. And I think my biggest point with safe storage is that safety in regards to the Second Amendment is an inherent expectation. And I say that because since February, I have done a lot of research into the founding documents and stuff like that. And one of the things that I learned is and I think that we've talked about this on the podcast, is that with every amendment in the Bill of Rights, there comes a corresponding responsibility that comes with that, and it's not written, but that's how they were intended, right? And so the responsibility that comes with the right of the Second Amendment, the protection of the Second Amendment, is for you to not take innocent lives, right? And so if you're doing that, in my opinion, I think in most people's opinions, if you are abusing the Second Amendment, if you are not using it safely, if you are taking innocent lives, if you are putting people in a position to have their lives taken, you don't deserve the protections of the Second Amendment. You are abusing it. You don't deserve those protections. And that's not me telling you how you need to take care of your firearms. That's me telling you that if you're going to own a firearm, you need to own it safely, because that is a tool that can kill people very, very easily. And that's an opinion I will sell to anybody at any time. If you own a firearm, you need to own it safely, or else you're not doing the right thing. You're being a very, very irresponsible gun owner. So now I want to move on to the issues that I have had with this, right? And I got to go and grab a certificate. I knew I was going to forget something. Okay. I knew I was going to forget something. Okay, so let's start here. One of the things that came with 1639 is a class if you're going to purchase a semi-automatic rifle, right? Like an AR-15, modern sporting rifles is like what they're called if you're going to shop for them, right? And so when I was trying to figure out the class, do you have to pay for it? What's the deal? Because if it's any type of cost prohibitive, I have a huge problem with that, right? So I went to take this class because we're talking about an assault weapons ban through the state. And I was like, you got me fucked up. And so I decided I was going to buy an AR-15. If you're going to do that, you have to take this class, right? So I went and I found the class. The class that you take, at least the one that I took, because is through Sporting Systems, right? It's a free class online that took me like 5 seconds. And I don't say that to promote this class. I say that for you to understand that this class being included in the bill was sold as a way to ensure that people know how to safely secure their firearms, and they know about suicide prevention, and they know about proper handling and safety guidelines, but you don't... You can literally click through in 5 seconds. There's nothing there, and that's just this particular one that I took, right? But there's nothing there to make you learn those things, right? And also, I would note, if anyone has taken this class or anything like it, so that you can purchase an AR-15 or a semi-automatic rifle, you will know that everything covered in that class, at least in this one, are things that I was told the very first time that I was ever taken shooting. So if you are shown how to use a firearm by a responsible person, adult, you will have learned these things already. And so I think that it's odd that the class was sold as like a revolutionary educational thing that if you take this, you're automatically going to know how to be 100% safe with a firearm. And there's nothing to ensure that that's the case. I don't know about other classes. I'm sure there are some instructor-led classes. I have no idea. This is the only one that I know about. This is the one that I found. If anybody wants more information, I'm not going to keep pimping it because I also don't want to get them in trouble. I don't want to shit on them. I think they're doing something that's just fine because, like I said, everything that you're required to know are things that I would teach somebody that I was going to take shooting for the first time. Anybody who's watching right now, if you've never used a firearm before, if I was going to take you shooting, everything in here regarding safe storage, because you're going to watch me unlock at least one of these guns because they're going to be locked up somehow, right? So you're going to see that. We're going to talk about that. I'm going to teach you the 4 basic rules of handling a firearm. We're going to talk about general safety. We may not talk about suicide prevention, but I don't know that that's my personal responsibility, but I'm sure there are a lot of people that would discuss that. There's nothing wrong with that. For certain people I would, but that's neither here nor there. So everything in here other than maybe suicide prevention are things that you would be taught by a responsible adult who's going to teach you how to handle firearms in the first place. So I think that's really weird, right? There is a fee that comes with purchasing a semi-automatic rifle, right? A modern sporting rifle, AR-15. We're just going to call it AR-15. That's just what we're going to go with, right? Easiest vernacular. Everybody knows what we're talking about. So there's an extra fee that comes with it because there is supposedly an enhanced background check that comes with it, right? The background check that is done when you purchase a firearm, regardless of whether it's a pistol, an AR-15, or whatever, is a federal background check done through the National Instant Criminal Background Check System. So it seems weird to me, the idea that my local sheriff's department would have a more comprehensive background check than the federal government would. I don't know that I would hope the federal government knows more about me than the state government, but I would hope that they would have the same type of knowledge about my criminal history in regards to purchasing firearms, things that would hinder me from doing so. So I think that's weird, right? And it should be noted, and I've spoken to everybody that I've purchased a firearm from, every individual that I've spoken to about firearms and this particular law who works in the firearm industry selling firearms. The background check that you pay for when you buy an AR-15 is literally no different than the one that is done if you're purchasing any other firearm. 100% verified by the dealers, right? And I say that because when I went to pick up this AR-15 and I had to do this thing with the class, I went there the first day to pick up the rifle, and I didn't have this certificate with me and was told that I needed to have the certificate even though it didn't say that anywhere in line. In fact, it said the exact opposite. So I was so frustrated, I went to the sheriff's department in Silverdale to ask them, can you provide me guidance on how this works? They could not, right? And I was very confused by that and also super frustrated. They said that they couldn't provide guidance because they weren't provided any outlines for the initiative or the legislation by the federal government. Or not the federal, by the state government, or by the state justice department. I don't know if that's what it's called, but I mean the attorney general and whoever works for him, because Bob Ferguson is the one that's spearheading this whole thing, right? The sheriff's department, who is expected to enforce these laws if they go into someone's home and they're not following them, was not provided guidance at the time that I asked, which was about a year ago. They had no idea exactly how it worked. They said the only people that knew how it worked were the dealers, right? And so that's why we're the gun sellers. And so that's why I mentioned what the dealers told me, right? So the fee, right? Let's go over some different firearms real quick because this is one of the weirder inconsistencies that I found, right? This is a pistol. It's a semi-automatic pistol. This is the pistol that I carry every day, right? This firearm is clear. There's nothing in it. There is not even any ammunition in this room just to cover it, but will ensure that they're all clear before I use them. There was no fee for the background check that came with this gun, right? When I purchased this, it was just before 1639 came into place. So because I had my concealed pistol license, I didn't have to do the 10-day waiting period that is supposed to come with these. That was another part of 1639, is a 10-day waiting period mandated for all semi-automatic firearms, right? But what we've come to find out is that if you're going to purchase a pistol, you don't actually have to wait the full 10 business days, right? If your background check comes back before the 10 business days, and again, this is verified by people that I know that have purchased firearms, by people who I have asked that work at the dealers. If you're going to purchase a pistol, you don't actually have to wait the full 10 days. If your background check comes back before the 10th business day, you can go back and pick it up. I'm not sure why that is, but I've heard that from multiple different stores, right? And I'm not going to call them out, but I'm not lying, right? So there's no fee that comes with this, no $18 fee. You don't have to wait the full 10 days, right? This is an AR-15, right? This is, again, clear. There's nothing in here. There's no magazine in here. There's no round chambers, right? So again, this is where the $18 fee comes in, right? These firearms, everyone's heard this 1,000 times. These firearms operate exactly the same. This goes back one time, the bolt goes back one time, the trigger gets pulled one time, one bullet. That's it. The same thing is said for this pistol. One bullet comes out, the slide goes back, loads another one, you pull the trigger, it goes off. That's it. One bullet, one trigger pull every time. The bullets look different. This one moves much faster than the one for the pistol, but that one from the pistol, it's a 10 millimeter. It's much, much bigger. It'll put it's much bigger hole. So you tell me what the bigger concern is. So with this, there is an $18 fee for the background check that is no different, right? Even if it's an additional background check, it's no different than the one that's done to the federal government. And you have to wait the full 10 business days, even if it gets into the store, or even if your background check gets back before that. I'm not sure what the difference is between this and this pistol here, because I'm going to carry this pistol every single day. And this I only take out when I go shooting and I do dry fire at the murder garage. So that's the gym that I work out in. That's poor context. So that's the gym that I work out in across the street to my neighbor's house. We jokingly call it the murder garage. That is just to provide context to that statement. Just because we're working with firearms. That's the only reason that I say.
Dry fire.
Oh, well, dry fire is that's whatever. If you don't know what that is, then it doesn't matter, right? Okay, so this is where I found the biggest inconsistency, right? This is a lower receiver, right? If you look at this AR-15, this bottom part here, I'll get it closer, right? This bottom part is this right here. This is the only part of the firearm, right? This is the only part of the firearm that has a serial number, the only part of the AR-15 that has a serial number to it. This is the only part that you have to have a background check on, right? When I bought this in the store, because you can buy them with no internal pieces, so you can build one off of this. You buy a trigger and all that stuff that goes in here and all the stock and everything else, right? You can have mailed to your home, right? And I think that's a great thing. I'm not denigrating. I think that's an awesome thing. But I'm just telling you that because this is the only thing that I had to purchase in the store, right? And I tell you that because when I purchased this, there was no $18 fee for the background check. There was no no 10-day waiting period that was mandated, right? I was able to go and pick this up with no $18 fee and leave the same day. All of the other pieces, this is the only thing that makes this a functional firearm, right? Everything else I can have sent to my home. So if you're somebody who's experienced, not even experienced, because again, I've gained all of this knowledge over the last 2 years, right? So I'm not experienced with firearms to even the slightest degree, right? But if you can purchase this in the store for no background check and no $18 or no extra background check, no $18 fee, and no 10-day waiting period, right? And all the other stuff you can buy in whole off of the internet. This top part you can buy all in one piece. This back piece you can buy all in one piece. It's just 2 extra pieces that you're putting on here that I'm doing in my house, right? You don't need any crazy special tool to buy it. There's a wrench that you buy the $25. And again, I just want to say again, I'm not trying to lay out a way to improve gun legislation. I'm trying to explain that what is being championed and fought for by the state government makes no sense at all, right? Because this gun that's put together already is big and scary and everyone's going to know about it even though it's only in my house. This one I'm going to build myself, and I don't, that doesn't make any sense to me. You know, that seems oddly inconsistent when the whole idea of this bill is to improve the safety of our children and the well-being of our community. And I don't think that there's really any personal opinion, any gun law that will solve that problem. This one especially will not do it because this doesn't make any sense, right? That makes no sense at all. This means nothing to anybody. If you don't know anything about firearms, you won't even know that it's a part of a gun. You could see it sitting out on my table and you would have no idea, right? But this one I have to do all this extra stuff just so that I can go and buy it. That doesn't really make any sense. So, and I should clarify, I have this written down. There was enough time that elapsed with this, that it could have been 10 business days before I went and picked it up. I cannot say for certain, but I really don't think that it was. And they did not say anything. I even asked, like, is there no waiting period? Is there anything? No, nothing, right? And so this, and this other part is the other biggest inconsistency. This is an AR-15 rifle, right? You can also purchase what is called, or build what is called an AR-15 pistol, in which, and I'm not trying to get too technical, it's going to be short, but just so that you can understand, again, this biggest issue, right, is that this pistol came with no extra background check, but it did have the 10-day waiting period, right? 10-day waiting period. This one right here, right, is an AR rifle. Has a 16-inch barrel and has what's called a stock on it. This goes into your shoulder, right, when you're firing the gun. So you can purchase or build what's called an AR-15 pistol, in which the barrel of the gun is less than 16 inches in length, and there is not a stock on here, but there is a pistol brace, right? And so it's meant to be fired with one arm, neither here nor there. It fires the exact same projectile, and a AR pistol with a 14.5-inch barrel as opposed to a 16-inch barrel will have identical ballistics and muzzle velocity to a 16-inch AR-15. I mean, negligible difference. Negligible difference. It will do the exact same thing, the exact same function. Everything will work the exact same. But the same thing applies. As this pistol here, I don't have to take the class, I don't have to pay the extra money, and I don't have to wait the full 10 days. Tell me again how this law fixes our problem. Tell me again how this law, 1639, that allows all of these inconsistencies that I was allowed to find as a 2-year educated gun owner and a 25-year-old adult. I'm 25 years old, right? Mm-hmm. 25 I literally thought I was 26 for a second.
Not yet.
Okay, sorry. So at 25 years old and a 2-year gun owner, education, whatever, I'm able to find all these inconsistencies just buying guns, right? I don't think this is the solution. So I just wanted, just a quick overview, right? I think safe storage is a great thing. I don't think that the government of the state or the feds should be telling anybody how they should conduct their personal life or how they need to store things in their home. I think that's very backwards. I think that people taking advantage of the Second Amendment should be safely storing firearms themselves, because that's your responsibility if you want to be a gun owner. The class is a joke, right? At least the ones that you can find online, it's a joke. And not that it's made, well, that one is kind of made as a fuck you to the state, but the content is not a joke, but the idea that that class is going to make you inherently safer with this gun is a joke. Especially because there's no mandate on time required for page. I mean, I was talking to my neighbor John. He's getting his hunting license so he can go hunting with Colin. He has to take this like 11-part course online on how to hunt from a boat and a tree and all this different shit. He has to spend certain amounts of time on each page. And I'm not advocating for a state mandated training that does that for firearms, because I think that their community should be doing that. That's a separate issue, right? My point is that if you have to do all that education to go hunting, but this is meant to make people safer, why is there no mandate on anything that has to be done except for the content that's within it, and there's nothing to mandate that you're actually consuming or learning that content? That doesn't make any sense. The fee that's going with it is bullshit. For the enhanced background check that's done through your sheriff's department as opposed to the federal government, it's nonsense. Especially because like I said, I can buy an AR pistol that will literally shoot the same cartridges. It will have the same or extremely similar muzzle velocity, same ballistics or extremely similar ballistics. Everything is the same except for the piece that's on the back and how long it is. Those same rules don't apply. Doesn't make any sense, right? Part of this is a vernacular issue that the federal government, the ATF, the state governments have complicated things to the point that this is how legal battles are going. But that doesn't make any sense, right? Especially, again, considering this firearm here that, again, is unloaded, is one that I'm going to carry and do carry every single day to protect myself, to protect my family, to protect the people around me, right? This one's going to stay in my home, and I'm going to I take it shooting, you know? I mean, there are select scenarios in which this rifle is going to be what I'm going to pick up as opposed to this pistol, right? So... Again, my point is not to lay out a way for the state to make a better bill. And I really hope that they won't see this and use it that way, because that's not my intent. My intent is, as this bill gains, I guess I can't say notoriety, but more public favor, because people are happier that it's getting like more push and it's moving through the system. I want people to really take a look at what it is, right? And that's what this is. And so I know that it's kind of gone on for a little bit of an extended time, but it takes at least this much time to understand that this makes no sense at all. And I keep pointing this because I have notes down here so that I can actually keep track of what I was talking about. This isn't the answer, right? I don't think anybody can deny that there is an issue with gun violence in America. There are people being killed left and right with firearms that are being bought on the streets illegally, all kinds of stuff, right? I don't think this is the answer. For all of the reasons that I laid out previously, this doesn't make sense. This isn't the way to go. I understand people thinking that it is, because again, when we talked about this in 2018, we championed it. We both voted for it. Colin and I both did. We both told other people to vote for it. We're like, oh, it's a class, it's nonsense. $18. Who cares, right? Oh, it's just bullshit. It's whatever, right? It is bullshit, but not for the same reason that we thought it was. We thought that it didn't matter. It's safe storage. Who gives a fuck, right? And again, I still think that safe storage is a great thing. I would hope that everybody is safely storing their firearms if they own one. I also know that there are people, single males, bachelors, in particular, that like to have their shit like laying around. And I think that that's fine. I don't agree with it. It's not how I conduct myself, but I think that that's your right. Even though it puts you in an extremely compromised position, I don't think that it's wise. I don't think that it's my right to be telling other people how they need to conduct themselves in that manner, or how they need to handle the equipment that they have purchased. I do think that if you're doing it incorrectly, like I said before, if you are not upholding your inherent responsibility that comes with the right of the Second Amendment, you're not entitled to its protections anymore. If you're taking innocent lives, if you're not safely storing your firearms, if you are putting other people in compromised positions, if you're putting yourself in compromised positions, you're giving up those protections, in my opinion. So I think that's where I can end it. If anybody has any questions, we're going to post this on YouTube. It's going to be on our YouTube at Salt of the Streets. Obviously, thank you for joining me. We had a lot of people, at various points, so thank you guys. I hope that everyone learned something,
That it's okay to learn more and change your mind.
It's okay. Yeah. That's a great point that Jordan just pointed out, that it's okay to always learn more and to change your mind. And I'm not afraid to sit here in front of everybody watching, everybody who's watched before, and say that, like, I didn't know. I thought that I understood before and I didn't, and it's okay. It's okay to not know. It's okay to not understand. But understand now, after having watched this, that I have spent the last 2 years learning all of this simply through buying these firearms, right? And I've heard a lot of people say, before I bought firearms, oh, well, have you ever bought one? Like, there's so much you can learn. And I have learned that there is an extreme amount of value in actually purchasing a firearm or going through the process to understand the reality of how it works. So, again, this is going to go up on our YouTube, Salt of the Streets. You can reach out to me on any platform and ask me any questions, comments, anything about what's happening. I would greatly appreciate if you guys would share this. We're having an extremely hard time with shadow banning. Over the weekend, I was unable to even pay Facebook to put up an ad of ours for a reason that I still have not received an email about. So I would love if you guys would share this, even if not to get our name out, but so that people that understand what's going on, understand that this the reality of this bill, this initiative, because it's not, I don't think that it's been given an RCW number yet. If it has, excuse me, but it doesn't matter. I just think it's important, especially for this, that people understand what's happening and understand that the wool was kind of pulled over our eyes by the state government. And in my opinion, in the frankest of terms, this bill was passed as a security blanket for the state, for us to feel like the government is taking care of us, when in reality this does nothing for us. Other than complicate the process that you have to go through as a responsible individual to purchase a gun or understand. It was a process. It was confusing. I went to the cops didn't understand. So it's crazy. So again, that's all. You can reach out to me on any platform. On Twitter, I'm at Salt of the Street. On Instagram, I'm at alpaca_Donavan. On Facebook, I'm obviously at Donavan Phillips. You can send us a message on Salt of the Streets. Our email, Salt of the Streets. Facebook, saltofthestreets.com, for everything. So thank you again for joining me. I hope that everyone learned a little bit of something. I hope you'll share this. And I hope that we all have learned the lesson to try and really take a closer look at the bills that we're championing, because I felt like a real dumbass when I went to buy an AR-15 after I told everyone to pass this bill. So with that, I will leave everyone. I hope you have an amazing Tuesday. And again, let me know what you think. And thank you guys. Again, have a great week.